Hey everybody, this is Eddie with MSC and welcome to our exclusive Manufacturing Day Q&A event hosted by MSC Industrial Supply Company in partnership with our great friends at American Cutting Edge, Oak Ridge National Laboratory, Mitutoyo, Stanley Black Decker, and many, many more. So for today, we have a live Q&A with some industry-leading experts. So please remember, with this being an interactive and engaging event, we not only encourage, but we anticipate each and every one of you to leave any questions or comments that you may have and leave them in the chat box on this side of the screen. But do remember, you have to be logged into your YouTube or Gmail account to take part in the fun today. So get logged in, hop on in, and you never know, we may be able to take your question or comment, pull it up on the screen, and answer it in real time. Looks like Steven's jumping on. Hey, appreciate you so much. He's excited to hear from the experts. Love the energy, my man. So today, we're going to be covering 4 separate sections for all of you. We're going to be talking about innovation, really what's changing the world, sustainability, how can these changes provide a better future for everyone, career opportunities, on how can I bring my skills to the world, and last but certainly not least, we're going to talk about inclusion. How can diversity drive growth? So without further ado, let's get things rocking and rolling. We're going to be going over innovation with one of our industry leading experts from the team at MSC, Jamie Goettler. Hey Jamie, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time. Hey, before we get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do for the team at MSC?
Absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me, Eddie, once again. It's great to see you. And great to be able to have the opportunity to speak with those that are viewing either now live or later. But my name's Jamie Goettler. I've been with MSC for 20 years. I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My responsibility with the company is metalworking innovation specifically. So things related to durable goods manufacturing, how we're making the country and our customers are making airplanes, cars, appliances, anything made out of metal or metal-like materials.
Well, wonderful. Again, we thank you so much for bringing yourself, your energy, and your expertise. So let's get jumping right in. So today, Jamie, we're talking with all of our viewers today about innovation. So let's take a little look back in time, if you will. What did innovation mean in manufacturing 10, 15, 20 years ago?
Yeah, certainly. Great place to start. So innovation is always about what is an advancement in a product or a service or a solution that makes life something more simple or more convenient. What I can tell you is, if we think a lot about more current state, I was in the business 10 and 20 years ago in metalworking and machining, working for MSC. The amount of advancements that were happening back at that time were slow but sure. There was some usage of the internet coming around the bend. There was new tool designs and new geometries, but there wasn't anything incredibly exciting that had really hit the marketplace, especially if you compare it to where we are today. So, there's a key term in the industry that folks hear in the news and everywhere called Industry 4.0. And when you think about Industry 4.0 or you think about innovation, that's the first thing that comes to mind. So things like robotics and automation, cloud computing, cybersecurity, digital twins, Internet of Things, data and analytics, all of those things are really popular, really advancing right now. And 10 and 20 years ago, we were barely thinking about most of those.
No, this is an interesting perspective that you bring with your experience as well. So now that we've established a little bit of what innovation meant, Jamie, what does innovation mean in 2021 and beyond?
Yeah, so those still, the same thing I had mentioned at the outset, but if we apply those to American manufacturing businesses, it's all about how can we make things more productively? How can we make things more efficiently? We look back at a year ago and the country was scrambling to find, for instance, N95 masks. And we weren't nimble enough as a company and resilient enough to pull those together. We have the manufacturing skills gap, but also taking advantage of innovation. Our ability to take innovations and learn from these latest in technologies can give us that level of resiliency and agility to make more things and make them fast. So when I think about it today, it's taking advantage of those Industry 4.0 perspectives, applying them to American businesses. And there's a lot for all of us to learn. And it's really, where do you start? where do I start with really dipping my toe in the water of these technologies? This younger generation that is likely listening and watching this particular session, boy, the industry needs you and needs your expertise, particularly as it relates to those Industry 4.0 innovations.
Sure, sure. So Jamie, tell me this. There are, of course, loads of wonderful examples of innovation happening every single day in manufacturing facilities across the country and the world. But are there any specific examples that you feel the most relevant that you'd love to share with the viewers today?
So there's all of those are relevant. Boy, it's hard to pick from all the list that I just gave to you. I think probably one of the coolest ones is the advancements made in additive manufacturing, otherwise known as 3D printing. You literally can go into whatever your browser engine is of choice, search for 3D printing, and look at the news and see just advancements being made every quarter in the industry. We have a partner that we work with, and I'll give you something that's out of the ordinary you wouldn't think of, but they were 3D printing wood, right? 3D printing wood to make telephone poles. So you wouldn't have to chop a tree down, drive through the city, with one of these large trucks, but they instead on site. Something that a few years ago, nobody's even thinking about, but advancements in 3D printing really are helping quite a bit with items of complex details and rare things that you might find in any type of industry. So 3D printing definitely is an extremely exciting avenue.
Oh, for sure. You hear about it every single day, and the new things we're doing by 3D printing metal, the plastics. And honestly, I'd never heard of them 3D printing wood. So what an incredible example to show just the broad range of what can be done just in a small example of innovation within our industry. So this is wonderful. And then additionally, Jamie, one thing I'm curious about is we've listed some examples, but why should some of these students be aware of the innovation that's happening within manufacturing?
So, hand in hand with innovation right now, because of the productivity that it offers to American businesses. So it's about jobs. There's a manufacturing skills gap that exists in the country, and there's a demand, and the laws of supply and demand say there's so much demand for skilled workers. If you have an expertise or a deep knowledge of any of these things that I just outlined, it really positions that potential employee or that worker to really make a drastic difference, not only for that business, but for their personal career, for their income, for their future. So I really think that that there's quite an opportunity when you connect what's needed today in America, which is skilled workers doing this kind of work, and innovation and Industry 4.0 aspects.
No, great points. For sure, Jamie. These all absolutely make sense. And then additionally to that, you're talking about this skills gap. So speaking to the individuals who are watching this, what skills should they be looking to acquire to help accommodate and really meet the needs of this innovation that you're seeing every single day?
Sure. So let's talk about the numbers real quickly. I was doing some research the other day, and preparing, is there a latest statistic? And there happened to be a latest statistic of it's now projected to be 4 million manufacturing jobs available by the year 2030. And these jobs are not in a dark and dingy, oily, dirty atmosphere. These are in very clean atmospheres. These are using computers and computer technology, programming robots. But if there was a particular curriculum, certainly in machining, which is what I focus on a lot within MSC, and see a lot of programming equipment. So programming CNC machines, programming 3D printing machines, programming robots. Folks are sometimes concerned about robots. Will they take all the jobs? Of course not. Folks need to program and need to maintain those robots. So I would say there's computer skills at the minimum really position folks well, but having somewhat of an understudy, maybe in automation and robotics, CNC machining, 3D printing, as I said, that would all be very helpful to the folks that are watching this session.
No, very good, very good. And again, as we continue to go throughout this session, remember, anyone who's viewing today, hop on in that chat box. Feel free to leave any comments or questions. And to that point, looks like we have one coming down the pipe. Stephen, hey, Stephen, thanks again for joining today. Question is, if you have not had a chance to watch Jamie's sustainability talk, oh, not a question, but a suggestion. He highly suggests that you check that out on the MSC Manufacturing Day landing page. Stephen always taking care of us. And with that, to that point, what are some cool things that we had referenced in that specific conversation? If you want to give us a little bit of teaser to lead us that direction.
Yeah, it's a brief presentation that we pulled together that I had the opportunity to share. So definitely check it out. But one of the metrics was a real life metric that we have a team of engineers at MSC that will go to American durable goods manufacturing businesses, so machine shops, aerospace companies, automotive companies, and so on. And they'll recommend better ways to do things with the latest in innovation, latest in technology. And I calculated the amount of hours saved over the course of about a 12 to 15 year time frame. And every time we save somebody time, that means you can make something in a shorter amount of time, and shorter amount of time means less energy. That means less greenhouse gas. That means less waste in a lot of cases. And so there was a metric that I share in the presentation that the amount of hours that we saved using innovation was the equivalent to the greenhouse gases that would be created by charging cell phones 6.8 million times. I think the number was, don't hold me to it. It was 6 million or 6.8 million, somewhere in that range. It was the equivalent of removing 20,000 cars off the road for an entire year in the CO2 emissions, or the equivalent of having 86,000 more acres of forest. So you'll see metrics like that, and how using innovation can not only impact the productivity and profitability of a business, making us more competitive and supply chain independent. You hear those things on the news, but it's also really good for the environment as we use these innovations to help us, do things better.
Now, these are wonderful and very, very relevant statistics that you bring to this conversation today, Jamie. I appreciate you giving us a little bit of the insight on your previous conversation. So it looks like we may have another one coming through the pipe here. Looks like John Roach. Hey, John, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your participation. John's question, Jamie, is how can I use my current skills in business and data analytics to get into the world of manufacturing? Jamie, what do you think, man?
Boy, listen, we need more and more of John out there. So from a business perspective, so companies have made all of these different innovations or Industry 4.0 aspects, and they're available to companies out there. So when I look at the business perspective, we have a lot of folks that enjoy and study marketing. From a business and marketing perspective, the only way somebody can buy something is if they're aware that it is even available out there. So somebody like John with some business acumen can be informing potential customers of the great solutions that exist out there and great technologies that can help further American businesses that way. It's a very clear path to having a very successful career in business when you combine it with innovation. He also spoke about data and analytics. And my goodness, if you're not tracking something these days, you're missing out, because there's so much to be had by learning about processes and capturing data along with it. The whole foundation of artificial intelligence that we always hear about is data. So any background in business and data analytics, like John is talking about, there's any number of companies that would absolutely be searching for somebody with those kinds of talents.
Yes, great question, John. Again, thank you for hopping in that chat box. Make sure you keep that up. And then we have time for one more question, Jamie, and that is, with everybody watching today, what should students be excited about?
Boy, that they have the baseline skills. Most of the folks that I know that are the age group that are likely watching and attending these sessions, they all know how to use cell phones very well, much better than I do. My kids are telling me all the time how to work mine, or to download the latest app or whatever. However, the cell phones, the computer skills, early interest in 3D printing, none of that existed with you and I, Eddie. That is the foundation, and that is really what manufacturing is really thriving upon, are those baseline skills. So what I would say is, do some research, type manufacturing innovation into a browser on your computer once, look at articles from the last week only, there'll be hundreds of them, and see what piques your interest, and then go get it. But you have, what I would tell the attendees is you have the baseline skills for what's necessary, a little bit of education in advance to really brush that up, and boy, you'll be situated to have a tremendous career in manufacturing, Eddie. That's what I would tell them.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's great. I could not have said it better myself, even if I tried. So thank you again, Jamie, for bringing your passion, your expertise, and just everything that you bring to the table when it comes to discussing innovation. So as we close out segment one, we're now going to be moving on to our second pillar of this conversation, being sustainability. And our subject matter expert from the team at MSC is going to be our good friend, Andrea Brannon. Hey, Andrea, hopefully you can hear me. We'll see you here in a moment. But nonetheless, thank you so much for joining us on this live MSC Manufacturing Day Q&A. You know the drill. If you could please give us a little bit of insight on who you are and what you do for the team, it'd be greatly appreciated.
Hey, Eddie. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I'm not sure why. Oh, there I am. I'm on the screen.
There we are. Welcome, welcome. Now we get to see your smiling face. Tell us about you.
Yeah, thanks. So again, my name's Andrea Brannon. I've actually been with MSC for 7 years. Feels like just a few years ago, but it's been 7. And as my title, Manager, Environmental Compliance and Sustainability. So I'm actually honored to be able to do something that I went to school for. My background's environmental science, majored in environmental science and environmental health. I kind of, like most folks on this call or listening in, either you've decided what you want to do or you're still kind of playing around with different, jobs out there. I was kind of concerned leaving college, what am I going to do with my degree? And I was blessed with MSC because I found something that I get to practice my expertise in. So, want to start with some questions, Eddie?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, thank you for giving us a little bit of insight on who is Andrea. So, Andrea, with you being our subject matter expert for sustainability, let's start here. What are some of the biggest shifts and or changes that you're currently seeing in the landscape that is manufacturing?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I love that question. So going back again to college for a second. So when I was majoring in environmental science, sustainability was something that kind of was just on the surface. A lot of businesses hadn't integrated sustainability in their practices. It was more or less a garnish than a main ingredient, if you want to think about it. I like baking, so think about it like that. And where I really see the landscape change is it's gotten to be something that's so important that, the New York Stock Exchange is weighing companies on their sustainable and economic practices. So again, where I've seen some changes, it's gone a lot from, your market share, your stock prices to how you treat your associates, your associate engagement, your ethics of a company to what's called the triple bottom line, which includes that environmental perspective as well. You got people, you got your planet, and you got your profit. And without your people and planet, you don't get your profit.
No, these are great points. So now that we've identified some of those big shifts that are changing within the landscape of manufacturing, what do you think is the cause of some of these changes? We got to hear about it.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of causes. Historically, some of the biggest drivers of any change is legislation. You've got environmental regulations, state, federal law. The EPA has a lot to do with it. The administration. You have, unfortunately, the negative side effects is environmental tragedies, Chernobyl, deforestation around the world, water quality and water shortages, air pollution. I want to keep this conversation positive, but I just want to, share the ramifications that, sustainability and environmental impact is greater than you or me, right? It affects everyone. And more importantly, it affects the next generations. I think really what's driving it, going back to legislation, and, one thing I do for the company at MSC, sorry, I didn't bring that up, is like risk management. I make sure that all the systems and processes that we do from a manufacturing or distribution perspective is, in compliance with the laws. It's in compliance with the EPA. It's in compliance with has waste reduction or remediation, recycling, etc.
No, very good. We're covering. Oh yeah, more than enough. It's great to see just the depth of knowledge and passion that you have for this specific segment, and also that you were able to take your course of study and really just drive that home. I think it's nothing short of impressive. And thanks for highlighting not only some of the shifts and these changes, but what caused them. So let's kind of move forward, and maybe some individuals may think, sustainability, why is that important in manufacturing or in general? So Andrea, why is it so important?
Well, and I hate to go back to, again, legislation, but let's talk a little bit about the laws, right? And I mentioned I'm in risk management, generally speaking. If you don't comply with those EPA regulations, what does that mean to a company like MSC or any of our companies? There's fines related to it. There's the, potential for not being able to get, customers, contracts, revenues. So there's that aspect, money, business is about money. It's about the people and the planet, but it's also about that profit, right? So, where I would think is, why is it so important? I mentioned earlier too about deforestation, and I really appreciated Jamie Goettler's example of the 3D printer printing trees. I'm thinking, wow, what a great innovation for sustainability. I didn't even know that was a thing. Yeah, but so again, going back to why is it so important, number one, as a business, you don't want to lose money, right? You don't want to have to pay fines. But a lot of people listening in today may not realize there's also criminal charges that are associated and, with not complying with the laws, right? It's a lot more than just, oh, we cut down too many trees, or oops, we, didn't clean up our, oil spill appropriately. It has a lot more ramifications than that. And it's important to, leverage our technologies, whether it's 3D printing, whether it's figuring out new ways to recycle or new ways to manufacture eco-friendly products. All of that kind of, again, lends itself to, again, why the changes and then why they're so important. And in something that I think is fantastic, kind of, I know I'm getting away from the question here, but with sustainability, it's ever changing. So I'm kind of, I can be a little ADD myself sometimes. My husband likes to say I don't finish one project before starting another. But with the landscape of sustainability, it's ever changing. Again, constantly leveraging new technologies. There's new problems. I'm a problem solver. I like seeing things come up and being able to think, thoroughly, okay, how can we fix this problem? If it's water shortage, if it's product packaging with, relation to our company, if customers are looking for more environmentally preferable products, something that many of you have probably seen on packaging now. You'll see, oh, this product is eco-friendly, or this product is green certified, or sustainably sourced. These terms are not going away in the industry. And I think something like that that's so new, but also so quickly changing, is very interesting and something that's a hot topic that's not going away.
Yes, a very interesting, hot topic indeed. And I love, even though we're keeping things in a positive light, it's also really important to talk about the consequences of avoiding or ignoring what's not going to happen, what is currently happening within our vast and dynamic industry. So with that, just quick reminder to anybody here, jump in that chat section, and looks like we have Kelly Flanders following the ride. Dig it. So Jamie compared one innovative energy saving practice to charging an iPhone. How does the industry generally measure sustainability so they can take actions to become more sustainable? Kelly, thank you so much for joining us. Andrea, what do you have for us?
Oh, how much time do you have? I'm limited to what, 5 more minutes?
You got
There's
this.
a lot of things. There's a lot of things we look at the industry, and I do like Jamie's example. Is it changing out all of your incandescent light bulbs and installing LEDs? Does it lower your energy bill? And yes, it does. And yes, it does by quite a bit. Looking at your fleet, all right. There's a startup charge for maybe switching over to electric vehicles. But if you can look at the 3-year, 4-year return on investment, gasoline emissions, reporting on emissions, by the way, government looks at reporting initiatives, and if you can lower your emissions, lowering your greenhouse gas emissions, that makes your company look a lot better. There's the ethics behind it, doing the right thing. And really, that's something that I was going to get into as well. It's not just doing the right thing, but there is an economic impact to sustainability, just like there was an economic impact to, quality. Having a universal standard and sticking to it, people wanted to see that ISO certification or those certifications. people have been cued into looking at badges on things to say, okay, now I know that this is a good product to buy. Same thing with a company. A company that's investing in environmental or is investing in, leaning, right? Leaning the fat, that's a big, I guess, hot topic of the day. Anything that you can lean like that, I guess, improves your bottom line and is something to look at. But great question. I hope I was able to answer it to the extent you were hoping.
Absolutely. And I think that you 100% did. So, great question. Keep those questions coming while we do have our experts here. We got time for another question or two here. So when it comes to sustainability, Andrea, everyone talks about the factory of the future. So to you, what does that mean?
Yeah, no, I love this again. The landscape's changing. People might laugh, not even 10 years ago, factories, it was already being put on the map of making, it was in the media, right? Making sure you're not disposing waste improperly. You're not polluting the rivers. There used to be this joke, NIMBY, not in my backyard. Well, all of this, along with social media, exploded, and everything is, right in front of our faces. So it's so important from that perspective. The factory of the future, where I'm getting at with this, is it used to be, well, let's just make sure we're not polluting the environment. Well, the factory of the future now is, instead of just looking at our direct impacts, let's look at also our indirect impacts. So, okay, let's make sure, we are sustainably sourcing. Maybe we don't purchase trees from, or, raw materials from sources that may not have good ethical practices. That's a very sensitive subject that I'm sure many of you are aware of, right? Socioeconomic impacts. And the factory of the future really is going to have, I think, a zero waste goal. A zero waste facility is some facility, if any of you don't know, where, nothing is going to the landfill, whether it's incineration, whether it's recycling, whether it's reduction and putting it back into the marketplace as another material. Zero waste facilities are the facilities of the future. Again, reducing the impact on the environment, reducing your waste, and incorporating leveraging new technologies and innovations to ensure you're sourcing, economically.
No, wonderful. A great way to be able to answer that question, to paint the picture of what that looks like. And it seems we have time for one more question. Looks like we got one coming through the pipe. Hey, Donald Donaldson. Hey, love the name, by the way. He says, hey, just joined. Where do I get more information on all of this content? Taking notes, but want more info. Hey, thank you, Donald, for not only your participation, but your active participation. Andrea, what do you have for us?
Man, well, as Jamie mentioned earlier, I know you just joined. The internet's a wealth of information. Whether it's you're looking at manufacturing, you're looking at sustainability. I mean, I have definitely some topics I'd like to share with you. If you want to look up some hit words like ESG, environmental, social, and corporate governance, that's a key word. CSR is another one, corporate social responsibility. All of these are not just up and coming, but they're becoming critical and vital to all businesses to stay in the landscape today.
Very good.
Brannon, that's your best resource.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, speaking of wonderful and great resources, we appreciate you in providing us the resource of understanding, transparency, and valuable information on sustainability. So thank you so much. So everyone, as we wrap up our second segment on sustainability, we're now going to make a solid transition and to talk about career opportunities. And our subject matter expert for this from the team at MSC is our good friend, Jeff Mulligan. Hey, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us today and giving us some time and your effort and your expertise, man. But before we get started and jumping right into career opportunities, you know the drill. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do for the team at MSC.
Hello, Eddie, and hello, everybody that's viewing today. My name is Jeff Mulligan. I'm the Senior Director of Talent Strategy here at MSC. I don't know if you can see behind me, I'm in our Davidson Center in Davidson, North Carolina. I've been with the company for a little over a year, but I've spent the last 30 in talent acquisition for other companies like GE and a brand you might know, Lowe's. So what I focus on day in and day out is the ability to attract new talent and bring them into the organization for what the organization needs: innovation, sustainability, and career growth.
Wonderful. Well, again, hey, we thank you so much for bringing everything you're going to bring to us. And let's get the conversation started. So when it comes specifically to career opportunities, Jeff, really there may be some stigmas when it comes to what's available in the manufacturing world. So can you touch on this for us as we start this conversation?
I could, even maybe through my own lens, through my own eyes. Years ago, I started paying for my own education working in a textile plant. And my experience, let's just call it years ago, I won't date myself, was a place that wasn't very bright. It was very, very mechanical, very industrial looking, if you will, the term fits. And I was working towards a college degree, and I looked at it as a stepping stone at the time. But I was involved in an engineering study. An industrial engineer team came in and studied our movements on how fast we could turn materials in each section throughout the entire process. And I was fascinated that these engineers came into this place that I thought, well, some people come to work here for a little while and then they go somewhere else. I was fascinated on what other opportunities there might be in this place. So in general, I think this historically people thought, well, you can only work in the shop floor. I'm in human resources and I work in the industry. Jamie had mentioned additive, 3D printing. Who would have thought that we'd be using that in the industry? But that took technology. That took people who understood. A lot of innovation comes from the floor. Folks that are working out there that are solving problems. We have opportunities in marketing, analytics, software development, you name it. Just like any other company in any other industry, we just seem to have a lot of it because there's such a call for it today. Andrea touched on the impacts that people in the industry have. We are changing the world through technology and what manufacturers do. If you think about a smartphone or medical devices, they come from manufacturing environments and someone had to design them. They had to conceptually think of them and design them. So those types of roles are available as well. The breadth and depth and scope, you can see it any of our partners on their career websites, your website, Mitutoyo, Stanley Black Decker, any of the folks that are involved with us today, you can go out and look at their career websites and simply take a look at what interests you on your background and your experience.
These are all great points and appreciate you hitting upon really what stigmas exist, because if we ignore them, we'd be foolish. So we're going to take a step back. We've recognized what those stigmas are. Why do they exist, Jeff?
I think events like today can help dispel them. And I think historically, over the last couple of decades, there's been a push towards software, information. The industrial age has moved on. We've moved into information. As we look at sustainability and innovation and caring about the world we live in and the planet, I think there's a lot more opportunity to educate people. And events like this, the Manufacturing Institute, as a way to go and look at the creator's wanted org site to help educate people and help them understand that this is not my grandfather's manufacturing environment. I don't know how else to say it. It is sleek. It is new. You talk about clean rooms. People don't think about that in the manufacturing area. They don't think about these uber clean environments where people are working with technology and data analytics and AI. They just don't think about it because the opportunity to learn isn't always there. But I think events like this help to change that perception and attract folks coming in at the audience range that we're talking to today.
Mm-hmm. It's not your grandfather's manufacturing facility. Love it, man. Post that everywhere. That's so great, and I'm glad you're able to share that very true and relevant tidbit with our audience today. So we're going to take this stigma thing head on, right? We've talked about what they are, why they exist, but riddle me this, Jeff. Why are they just so wildly incorrect?
I think it's because there's not enough exposure for the industry in the media. I think if we had the chance to really show all the goals that Andrea talked about and how people in the manufacturing industry are really changing the world. Not in my backyard. We don't want those pollutants in there. And if you can think about the supply chain and the manufacturing chain that Andrea talked about, it's not just us taking responsibility in our own manufacturing facilities. It's at both ends. When we bring in materials, are we sourcing them from overseas where we're using energy and fuel and pollution, not just pollution from the fuel itself? What about noise pollution in whales and how it impacts their migrations and stuff like that? If you really think broader about it, I think we can change it with a lot more telling of the good stories. out in the media and getting information out on our own company's websites and, pulpits like this where we're given the opportunity to share that information.
No, I think that we're doing a great thing here by doing just that. And looks like we have a question coming through the pipe. Let's pull it on up. John Roach, hey, thank you so much, John, for participating in our event today. So the question is, what talent gaps currently exist in the manufacturing workforce? Jeff, you got this one, man.
Yeah, well, you heard Jamie allude to it before. Millions of job opportunities across the entire industry, right? We've got them everywhere, global. We're focused in the United States for this call, but when I think about what the biggest gaps are, for the manufacturing environment, they run the gamut of what I've talked about before. It's hands-on folks in shops. It's CNC trained individuals. I don't know if we mentioned ACE already, but the ability to get training and become part of the organization and step right into a role where you're impacting. I think software development, there are gaps right now because there's an aging population that's going to be retiring. There's an expansion in product development where we need more and just sheer volumes of people to take on all of these jobs to meet the demand of the consumer. We are a consuming environment and a consuming nation, and the only way to meet that desire is to make these products through manufacturing. And as I spoke about before, smart devices like phones, medical devices, think about the computer that you're watching this on right now or tablet. That was manufactured somewhere by someone, and we always want new versions of those. We really, really do. And there's just a huge gap in almost every sector of job type, family, and function, whether it's human resources, technology, on the shop floor, manufacturing, supply chain, just getting things to people from manufacturing environments from their partners. It's an incredible gap that we're trying to solve. And events like this and MFI and partners like yourself and other folks is what helps us bridge those gaps over time.
Absolutely. Hey, and we're doing the good work to help bridge those gaps every single day. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, looks like we have another question getting ready to come through the pipe here in a second. Looks like John. Hey, John, again, thank you for your participation in the event today. Jeff, his question is, how can students be best prepared for the career opportunities in manufacturing and distribution ahead of them? What do you feel, man?
I think just be yourself and take a look at what you're doing wherever you are in your academic career, whether that's, sophomore, junior, senior in high school, if you're in a trade school, if you are in a 4-year degree program, or if you've exited from a high school and want to just step into the working environment like I did. I'm not your typical employee. I didn't go right from a high school degree to a college degree. I worked in between as I worked towards that degree. There's so much opportunity out there right now. What are your strengths and goals that you want to achieve? And what are your passions? There's room here with as many jobs that are open right now. Take a look. It can be a scary adventure, for lack of a better term. I didn't know what I wanted to do, which is why I started working in an environment to get a feel for what it was like to work. Be prepared to network. You're not in this alone. You're not the only person looking for a role. You're not the only person gainfully employed today. Reach out to your network. And if you can't, look online for services. There are lots of people who are willing in organizations, people like myself, or who are in talent acquisition, who are more than happy to answer questions for how you might be able to get into an organization. There is at least one of me in every single company I've ever experienced. So there are people in it that are available. There are tools like LinkedIn to find us. There are career sites to find us. We always have our contact information on those sites. Please reach out through those portals to us, and we can help guide you or answer questions.
No, wonderful. And then so when it comes to clearly all of these opportunities to get plugged into the industry, Jeff, why is it so important for them to realize that these opportunities exist?
It's the only way we're going to bridge the gap and help what we need in the manufacturing environment. Self-actualization, taking the first step can sometimes be the hardest. Realize that you are a valuable person and a good person and a valuable asset to a company, a valuable part of their organization. Take that to heart and let that lead your way.
No, I absolutely love it. And then we're going to take a quick step back on the gaps that we discussed, because I think recognizing those and discussing them briefly is going to be very helpful. So with those gaps, Jeff, what caused them, in your opinion?
There are a lot of things, I think, that cause the gaps in the manufacturing environment for employment. Some of the stuff I mentioned before was, as the world changes, something shiny and newer, technology, information. Those became very desirable roles because the pay was very high going in. They were super cool to look at. You got to play with new tech and develop things that were relatively new to people. So as one sector increases in interest from the workforce, other sectors lose the advantage for their workforce, right? But as manufacturing changes and focuses on sustainability and innovation, we're just as cool as software development because oddly, a lot of that's involved in the manufacturing environment. So some of those people that had migrated over to software development or innovative companies have now become part of the manufacturing companies themselves. They've been absorbed and we've stood those groups up. Not everybody had data analytics 5 or 6 years ago. You didn't even think about it. It was mostly government driven. But now almost everyone is building a data analytics organization. So where people used to go to work with the government or these really big corporations that could only fund them, now find themselves working for companies all over the world that aren't as large and may not be as well known as a brand.
Right, all very relevant topics. So I think we've got another question or two that we'll be asking here in a second. So one thing that we have as we kind of wrap up our time here in this segment is what will those gaps, or I guess what gaps will exist in your prediction in the next 15 to 20 years?
Yeah, what I see is something that Jamie alluded to. He had mentioned that, are machines going to replace everyone? Nope. But someone needs to build and maintain those machines. And I think one of the biggest gaps we're going to see is as we move towards automation and simplification and continuous improvement, the innovation cycle just moves a lot faster than we can as humans. It leapfrogs from time to time. And over the next 5 years or so, I think you're going to see some of the innovation that comes out in machinery in the shops. We just won't have the technical skills in the workforce to meet that. And we will have to train and educate that next group of people coming up through the high school ranks and the college ranks and the trade schools to take on those roles.
Very good, very good. So hey, with that being said, I really think we can end this on a high note to talk about, we've talked about gaps, we've talked about some opportunities, but Jeff, what are some specific opportunities within manufacturing that our viewers need to know about?
I think some of the things that you really need to know about right now is that we need you in the industry. The gap's not going to be filled by itself. We need you to become an active participant in the process. We need your interest, your curiosity, and the baseline skills that Jamie talked about. We need you to bring them to us. We need you to join. We need you to become involved to help the industry continue to grow in innovation and sustainability. And I think the easiest thing you can do is just, one of the viewers before said, how can I find out more about this? Be curious, be interested, and engage.
Yes, be curious, interested, and engaged, because this is not your grandfather's manufacturing environment, right? That's the greatest, Jeff. That's the greatest. No worries. Well, hey, again, thank you so much, Jeff, for bringing your passion, your expertise, and your experience to the conversation today. So as we've wrapped up our career opportunity segment, we're going to be finishing strong with our fourth pillar of our MSC Live Q&A Manufacturing Day, and that is with inclusion. And here to talk with us about inclusion is our good friend from the MSC team, Tara Jaketic. Tara, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you. So that being said, You know the drill. Let us know a little about yourself and what you do for the team at MSC.
Wow, I feel like, I can't hold up to my team that's already been here. I mean, we've had some fantastic people on. So my role, Eddie, I actually have two in the company right now. Sales development is primarily what I do, sales development and performance when it comes to our outside sales consultants. But then I'm also the one of the chairs on our Black Inclusion Group, which is probably why I'm in this section today in chatting with everybody about inclusion and kind of where we're going with it in the industry.
Yeah, a very, very important conversation that, in my understanding, doesn't get talked about enough. But as we're getting ready to go over, there are plenty of things being done and loads of opportunity for everyone within the industry. So let's, again, jump right in. When it comes to inclusion, what would you say has recently changed with inclusion within manufacturing?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think probably the biggest thing that's changed is companies aren't looking at diversity and inclusion as separate and apart from their business goals, right? So we're finding that 35% of companies that have a diverse workforce are seeing higher revenues, right? In the private sector, another data point there is that we're seeing, there 72% of private sector are equating their productivity to being more diverse. So definitely, and diversity is not just, we typically go to sort of what races are included, but it's diversity of thought and just having a wide range of backgrounds that are interacting within an organization.
Okay. No, great dive into that. And as we continue, what are companies doing better nowadays as opposed to potentially what wasn't being done before?
Yeah, so, we went through this spell, and, I won't dispel how old I am on this wonderful live event here, but what I would say is over the last few decades, what's happened is we've sort of been put on this gag order of certain things we don't talk about at work, as if home Tara doesn't show up, with work Tara. And so I think what companies are doing, they're gaining a more perspective around bringing your whole self to work. And to be able to do that, companies have to be creating a space where people feel safe to bring their whole selves to work, right? Which means being able to talk about things that might always be comfortable. So I think there's just been more of a laser focus on creating those safe environments. And again, if we think about building a bench for the future, which I think a lot of the conversations today, that's what we're talking about. It's bringing people in where they feel safe in an environment where maybe they wouldn't have before.
I love your comment, bringing your whole self to work. I think that's very, very profound, and I love that specific segment almost as much as I love not your grandfather's manufacturing environment. So it's right up there. But very, very relevant.
I'm using that one too.
Yes. We're just throwing great things around here. So, but with that, so that I don't get us too off topic, because Lord knows I will.
Right.
With that, diversity inclusion, why is it so vital, Tara?
Yeah, well, I think diversity and inclusion is vital, one, because, companies, we're looking to innovate, right? And so if you look at the manufacturing space right now, it is not a very diverse environment. So the only way you grow from innovation is bringing in fresh ideas, looking at things differently, challenging sort of the status quo, and you have to have diverse thoughts. So that's where we grow up. What culture are we bringing into the organization? All of those things are diverse. And so for us to stay on this theme of innovation and sort of moving where the manufacturing space is going to go, right? We can't create Andrea's dream manufacturing environment if we sort of stick with where we are. So diversity, I think, is really just about bringing more color and sort of creating that space for innovation that we've been talking about today.
No, very, very relevant. And then as a quick reminder in the middle of this segment, anybody jump on into that comment section. You never know, we may be able to bring your questions or comments on screen. It sounds like, do we have one coming? All right, Julie, thank you so much. She says, hello, Tara, right on. How does having a job in manufacturing impact inclusion? Tara, what do you think?
So I'll say this is really kind of near and dear to my heart, because working with one of our resource groups, right, and newly formed resource group, part of our goal is recruiting. So where we're talking about impacting inclusion, well, right, we want to include everyone. We want to bring that diversity in. So we make a very conscious effort in our recruiting efforts to make sure we're starting to build that bench within the manufacturing space that sort of represents the world outside, right? Just being able to function in a place that looks like the outside world. I mean, that's really the goal.
Oh,
I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure it won't be the first one or the last one by any means. And so as we continue this conversation here, we're talking specifically to students or individuals getting ready to enter the workforce, or, kind of considering that. Why should they take part in this inclusion or diversity movement? Why does that matter, or should it matter to them?
Yeah, I think it does matter. I think, honestly, because it matters to this younger generation is why companies are really focused on it. We've got a generation of folks that care about the environment, that care about the human element, and they are looking at companies' investment in that and where they choose to want to work. So I think it's something we have to do. I think it's something we should be doing. And if I'm looking at it from the student's perspective, if those things are important, then by all means, I would shop the company I went to work for to make sure that their goals and objectives were in line with sort of what my beliefs were. So I think they've got lots of options out there, right? So just because you go to work doesn't mean you have to sort of leave what your passion for the stamp you want to leave on the world. You can combine the two. So I think it's super important.
No, very, very important. And so aside from that, now we know why they should take part. And you really mentioned there's lots of opportunities there. So Tara, the question remains after that is how can they take part in this movement?
Well, so I would say, especially if I'm looking at it from the high school level, and I was just having this conversation, not everyone wants to go to college. I think Jeff mentioned that, right? So you can start to look at like, where is your technical skill set? Where can you start to bring that in? I don't think women tend to look at the manufacturing space, and yet there's plenty of women in the industry, and maybe we're just not getting the forefront. I think it's an opportunity really to bring all of your thoughts and ideas into an organization, and you can do it at the ground floor. So I think you look at it because it's not a place where most people look to shop for a career, or kind of to what Jeff was talking about. There's a stigma about what someone who works in manufacturing looks like. I'm probably not it. So there is definitely, I think, some benefit to changing the look of manufacturing, which I think is what we've been talking about today too.
Very good, very good. And one last impact question to make sure we're really tying everything together for your specific segment. I'd like to end this on, if you could tell us a little about what MSC's position is and kind of how leadership has responded. If you can give us a quick brief on that, I think that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, so I would say now I've been with the company for 14 years, and our culture has been something that's been super important to us. So we are dedicated to diversity and inclusion. We've created 3 resource groups. We've got a women inclusion, veterans inclusion, and the Black inclusion group. There are 3 more that are going to be kicked off in FY22. I think Hispanic, LGBTQ, and disability. So we're focused on it so much so our CEO signed a pledge to be fully invested in diversity and inclusion. There are probably 2,000 other CEOs that did the same thing. But I'd be remiss if I did not say, from our CEO's perspective, this has always been a running theme within the company. We're just sort of putting a name to it, is what he would tell you. And inclusion is one of his 5 goals for FY22. So we are locked and loaded on this being a part of our DNA.
There you go. Locked and loaded. Looks like we got one last question from Dana. Obviously, she says, oh, not a question. Good kudos. Hey, great conversation. Courageous and necessary. Thanks, Tara. Credit absolutely deserved to you, and that's amazing. So thank you so much, Dana, for participating today. And again, thank you, Tara, for going over the ever-important segment of inclusion. So for all of you viewing this live, that does conclude our 4th and final segment for this MSC Manufacturing Day Q&A. So we appreciate you joining us on this special segment. Big shout out to, again, MSC Industrial Supply Company, as well as our great partners, America's Cutting Edge, Oak Ridge National Laboratory, Mitutoyo, Stanley Black Decker, and many, many more. Following our demo today, make sure you head on over to MSC's YouTube page. I need you to hit that subscribe button, ring the bell to turn on notifications, and give us a huge thumbs up. So thank you all again for joining us for MSC's Manufacturing Day Q&A, a conversation designed to deliver on our promise, built to make you better.